we are doing this bad Samaritans. And so this will give us some old argument about what is free trade and whether do we really need free trade. Yeah? And I just collected several questions for you to answer that makes understanding of the textbook a little bit easier. Yeah? So let's start from number one. So who are the best two people for number one? Yeah. Yeah. Superstar. Okay. Can you come here? Yeah. to make you a real star. So the chapter, number one is about this. The author criticized Thomas Mann's bestseller. So please tell us a little bit about that book.
Yes.
And then please answer those things. And by the way, what is your name?
My name is Aziz.
And?
My name is Raymond.
Okay.
But, my friends call me Super.
Well, to start, to make you in the story for those who didn't read the first chapter, let's start with the book titled "The Letters and Olive Tree." Thomas Friedman, in 1992, he was in a trip to Japan, and on his trip he was scheduled to visit Lexus factory in Toyota factory in Nagoya, and in his way back, he was really impressed with the factory and the technology advancement they have there. So in the way back to Tokyo, he was riding Shinkansen, and he had this epiphany that when he read a piece of newspaper about the Middle East, he found out that, and you know the type of news that comes from Middle East, you can imagine that type of news. So he found out that this world, half of this world, as he described, is trying to make high-tech, high-advanced industry like Lexus, while the other half of the world are struggling to decide who's going to take control of, and that's kind of referring to the Middle East political problem that's running since a long time. Anyway, so from this he wrote the book, The Lexus and Olive Tree. And the argument he mentioned here in this book is that for a country to move up its economy and to be counted as an industrial country, there is one way to do that. And that way is what he called the Golden Street Jacket. And that way, I'm sure Raymond knows better about this way than me.
Okay, thank you very much. As it's written in the book, the Golden Street Jacket is a set of economic policies. The author actually further describes it as a sum of today's neoliberal economic orthodoxy. And I'd like to take you through, run you through this set of policies. These policies are about 10. And the first one, according to Friedman, is that a country needs to privatize its state-owned enterprises. He went on to say that it is also better for a country to have low inflation. And the third one is that countries should reduce the size of government bureaucracy, and then the country should try to maintain a budget, budget balance, if not a surplus. He also went on to say that countries should liberalize trade, and there should be deregulation of foreign investment, and deregulation of capital markets. And countries should make their currencies convertible. And finally, he also said that countries should try and reduce corruption as well as privatize pensions. What is interesting about these set of economic policies is that, according to Friedman, these are the only path to success for the countries that find themselves in the olive tree.
But this is concerning the other part of the question, how the book criticized Thomas Friedman's argument of the Golden Strait, what? Straight jacket. Yes. It's criticizing in 2 points. The first one, the book writer mentioned that if let me bring you back to the story that the book used. In early 30s, there was this country, this developing country that started investing in car manufacturing, and they succeeded after 25 years of investment in this car. They succeeded to export their car to the United States. And after some years in the market, the cars couldn't compete, and it was a failure. What happened is that that country put a lot of investments and a lot of support to the car manufacturers in order to be competitive. And it succeeds. And you can have an idea about what car I'm talking about and what country I'm talking about. It's Japan, and the car is Toyota, that used to be called Toyota. Yes. So now Toyota is taking over the world with its luxury manufacturing of cars. Well, the point here is that the argument that the book is mentioning against Thomas Friedman's argument is that if Japan followed Thomas Friedman's golden straight jacket, there would be no Toyota right now. Toyota would be not existed, as he mentioned, or it would be a subsidiary of another Western manufacturer. So this is one criticism of Thomas Friedman. What's the other one?
Aziz, if I should add to your point, the second criticism is that the set of Friedman assumed that this set of policies is kind of one size fits all. And I think it's a very difficult point, because it's difficult to classify a set of policy and assume that this kind of policy is good or is the best for all countries. If I want to talk about Ghana, I can say that fine, we have low inflation, and we have some of these. We try to privatize some state-owned enterprises, but I'm not sure that we are almost heading towards the Lexus countries. So I think that the second criticism is that it assumes that one size fits all, which may not be true. Yeah. So.
And of course, we can't take one set of policy and apply it to all countries, because every country's economy has its own characteristics, that has its own requirements. And those are the two arguments.
Any questions? You look very professional, like TV show or something. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Question, please.
Yeah, you have to listen very carefully, because I'm not going to provide any answer keys for them, but they all provide a very, very nice answers. It summarizes very well this is the books. So just listen very carefully what you said. Yeah?
I have a question. If you ask the same question in the exams, should we remember the 10 economic policies?
No, like that. Yes, I'm not gonna ask you to answer those whole questions, but maybe it's gonna be very simple. Then maybe golden steel jacket, that means it's like a so-called one-size-fits-all policy. There should be, all policy to all countries. Is it true? False? Then maybe it's a circle, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I want you to read the book. As long as you read it, then it's very easy to answer it. If you didn't read it, then maybe no way. But yeah, I don't want it make it very difficult. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess you don't have a question.
Small incentive. Thank you very much. There are 2 pens in here, so I want to give more, but yeah. So you can share. There are two inside. Yeah.
Can you open it here?
Yeah, you can open it.
You don't trust him?
So I brought a lot when I came to Japan, but I just gave one by one whenever I meet somebody. So I have only like 14 or 15 left. Anyway, so yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, so these are author, I mean, basic kind of opinion is all same like that. So he mentions different things. So basically, he's criticizing this kind of so-called globalization in one standard. Yeah? So there should be many different standards across the countries, but these days globalization requires kind of only one standard, like some clothes that one size. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And shall we move on to the next question? Okay. Can you write down your name here? Just by hand. Yeah. Okay. Short name. Yeah. So only half, so that she has a space.
Okay. I thought it's only for me.
Okay. Maybe somewhere else. Okay. Faye and Jubai will answer number 2 about export succeed does not require free trade.
Yeah. So, first we want to come up with a story of the Korea regarding the question that says the author argues that export doesn't require free trade. What does he mean by it? So, and after this, I come to the other part. So my fellow will also answer why it's not. Why it's also possible to achieve the export success in the absence of the free trade. If we come to the story of the Korea from 1971 to 1981, or the period that the Korea economy had the economic boom, so the GDP per capita of Korea increased for 5 times, and the Korea had also the control over foreign spending, exchange spending, and they discouraged the foreign exchange spending and for essential industries, so that through the import tariffs, through the import bans, and as well as high taxes. So the other part was also during this period that economic boom and the per capita GDP increased by 5 times. Korea also nurtured certain industries through consultation with the private sector, and also supported them through the tariff protections, through the subsidies, and as well as through other kind of government supports, which included the overseas marketing information service provided for free through the export agency. And during this period, these kind of supports continued not for a lifetime, but it was for a specific period to reach the new industries grew up enough to a level to take part in the international competition. So they wanted to support them only to a level that they should be able to take part in the international competition. And at this time, the government also owned all the banks. So it means that the government was directing the credit to business as a lifeblood for the business. And the private sector, in case if the private enterprise were mismanaged, the government would have intervened and took them over restructure them, and sell them back, usually. So it means that the government was keeping an eye for the private enterprises to make sure that they are functioning properly. And the Korea government also had the absolute control over the foreign exchange, foreign currencies. So the hard-earned currencies was only used for the vital machineries and industries. So it was only used for those industries that they needed for their vital machineries and industry inputs. During this period that they had so big achievements and they achieved their per capita income, what was expected even 3 years before the expected period, the government also had evenly control on the foreign investment. It means that they welcomed the foreign investment only in the sectors when there was no internal industries or investment in the Korea. But an opposite, and totally ban them or restrict them in some specific certain sectors according to Korea's National Development Plan. And there were also some other cross-cutting issues like they were encouraging the reverse engineering and some other small issues which helped the Korea's industries to reach the high achievement, even like a miracle compared to rich countries that they achieved that target. And whether the export success can be achieved with the absence of free trade or not, so my fellow will explain more about this.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'll try not to take too much of your time. My partner, he just explained the story about Korea, right? The issue with Korea is that they practice protectionism to the industries that they wanted to develop. So, when they wanted the industrial sector to develop, they shut down everyone. They stopped foreign direct investment in that sector. But if they felt that investment would benefit their country, they would let them come in. But if they saw it as competition, they would block them. Okay. So their objective was for open free trade in some sectors, it was for them to generate foreign currency and also technological advance into their country to benefit them. But so their focus was on nurturing their industries. The foreign currency they got from exporting, they drove it to improving their industrial sector. The little foreign currency they had, if there was shortage, they would direct it to the industrial sector. So in a way, the whole success of their industrial sector was from protectionism. They put tariffs, they put subsidies, they protected their local industries. So in this case, the Korean case, export success was a result of the absence of free trade. So to answer your question on this one, the author argues that export success does not require free trade. So in the case of Korea, they succeeded because of the absence of free trade. If there was free trade, they wouldn't have been able to protect the small industries which they were trying to develop. So because of protectionism, the small industries, they let them grow, and then they opened up to the world. Thank you very much.
If we listen to their answers and if we read the textbook of this course, that's going to be very confusing. Right? It's very different things. And this answer is going to be similar to the previous one of Japanese case. Like Toyota was not going to be successful without receiving subsidy from the government. And this one is a very similar example. In fact, Korea's industrialization policy is also based on Japanese policies that they did before. So Korea learned from Japanese experiences. And but what is important is that even though there is no a free trade in the development stage of South Korea, Korea did not destroy the market itself. So they respected the market. So based on the market, they kind of encouraged the competition among the firms. So they didn't really want to control the firm itself. But they kind of encouraged the firm to compete and more, and those winners became kind of the firm who receive a lot of some benefits. So it is based on this kind of market competition, so managed market, some competition-based like policies. So even though there's no free trade, but it doesn't mean that it's like a kind of a centrally planned centrally planned economy. It's basically market economy, but kind of managed by government. So if we like read this book, and some people say, oh, this guy is a communist. He doesn't like government. He doesn't like a market. He may believe that the government should control everything, and like what the communist economy did. But he's different from those like some extreme communist opinion. He basically believes market itself, but not free market, but kind of a managed market. So that's the kind of presentation. Any questions?
Professor, so can we classify his philosophy as maybe a mixed economy? What is
Could be mixed economy, yeah. But based on market economy, but managed market economy. Not a liberal market economy, but yeah, can be, you can call it mixed, yeah.
So, Professor, can we conclude that the government should consider the trade according to their national interests, so, and support the industries? And many developing countries, what the rich countries like US and UK, they chant that it's free trade and it's by your benefit. But actually on the ground it's different. So,
that's right.
Yeah, so it should be regulated by the government and directed according to the benefit of that country.
Yeah.
Not totally open for the other. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, that's what he's arguing. Like those Japan and Korea was successful because of this kind of a government-based competition things. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. And pick up one and share. Okay, number 3. Can you write down your name here? Only half, yeah. So that he has a space. Okay. Okay, Gilbert and Aziz will answer number 3. New Aziz, yeah?
Since you are here.
In fact, there are many Aziz. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Number 3 is about concept. That concept critics Britain idea suggests to other country to develop a free trade to other country, but German economist, his name is Friedrich List, critiques the Britain concept, the Britain concept to free trade, to make free trade to other country. For further explanation, please.
Thank you, Aziz. Yes, the actual issue is for us to explain kicking away the ladder, as mentioned by Friedrich List in 1841 against the British government. That was the time that they were preaching free trade to developing countries, mostly in Asia and Africa, which has crippled most African countries and maybe some other Asian countries. The issue was that free trade was good. They were preaching to them that free trade was good. They should use that, not involve the government in the economy. They should give everything to the market and all that. But all this, those rich people, British, and maybe to mention the US, they ignored these policies. But they were preaching to others to follow. So List saw this and was fascinated and then made mention of this term, that these people aren't, or did not use those policies, but they are preaching to others to use it. They know the consequences, but they try to ignore the benefits that could accrue to not using free trade, but rather trying to tell them that they should incorporate free trade in their policies, creating a way, making those people market places for their exports and then other stuff. So this man saw it and then gave it this time that kicking away the ladder, British government plus its people, they kicked away the ladder. The process or the good ways, the good policy they used to make the economy as it is now, or at the time, 1841, they ignored. They did not talk about it, rather giving them something new, something different, which cannot actually position them in a way that British was at the time. So what they were preaching was free trade and then market economy.
What is the ladder?
No government. Sorry.
What is the ladder?
The ladder is the process or the way or the policy that made them the rich countries they were at the time. So they ignored it. That is government intervention, protecting certain key industries, the policies which are not free trade related or free market related. They put away these ones and then actually told them to do what they didn't do. So that is what Friedrich List described as kicking away the ladder. This is what we have for this question. Anything? Maybe you want to add? Yeah. You want to add something?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, no. Okay, so
Right.
you're kind of a moderator of this. Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you.
any questions? So you know this concept, yeah? What does that ladder mean? And as they climbed up using the ladder, so they are now a kind of a developed stage, and then they kick away those ladders so that current developing countries cannot climb up. And if we read the book, there's another sentence, like do as we say, not as we did, yeah? Something like that, yeah. So what they did is kind of like using ladder. What they are saying is not to use the ladder. It's quite
It's very useful.
right. But the fact that we have a WTO itself is very difficult for developing countries. Use the same policies that developed countries used before.
That's right.
Yeah? So it's some kind of this is some controversial fact.
Yeah, controversial fact. Don't understand that.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pick up on your chair. Yeah. New iPad.
Professor.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Belle. This is my Mr. President. I'm his secretary. Okay, so today there's nothing to do with the question, but anyway. So now we will give the more example about what is really like the example of the kicking away independence. In the ancient era of UK used like various kind of like how can I say, like regulations or subsidy to prevent like every competitors from lower country like Switzerland. I forgot.
You can do it.
First, because like back then I forgot, King Henry VII or something. He tried to promote the wool material, like the wool and the clothes industry. So back then in that era,
Yeah, you don't need to explain all these countries' examples, but you can kind of summarize kind of what is kind of a unifying theme of this kind of example.
Yeah. So it's like they use tariff to prevent import goods from the competitors, and they try to subsidize their own industry, just like same as Japan and Korea case. So because like they want to produce more wool clothes, and back then in the ancient era, they're not that developed about making this. So So they decided to ban imports goods and try to subsidize, try to make the standard of the production in the country. And then Mr. President will help me.
In addition to that, they tried to they enforced state-owned. They created state-owned enterprises, which means the government controls the main industry. So they can tell them whether to trade with other countries or not. Basically, the kicking away the ladder is, yeah, but Professor explained. You're already there. You don't want any other guys catching you up, because if not, there will be competition. So they were selfish in that perspective. So protectionism was the name of the game. They tried to protect all their industries where they had advantages. So they supported patent laws. They restricted their enterprises from doing foreign trade. And because these countries are already powerful, they're OECD countries. And what we learned in class, they control WTO, they control a lot of international organizations. So they impose, while their countries they're protected, their industries are protected, they forced free market policies on the developing countries. So it was a very one-sided affair. So that is how those are the guilty secrets of these countries. Some of those guilty secrets.
Yeah. If you are interested in this, especially this part, then he wrote a book with the title of that, Kicking Away the Ladder. Because, in fact, that book was published before this book was published. So that book was published in 2003 or 4. So this is how he became quite well known. So after this book, he got the kind of a prize, Mirda Prize something. That is supposed to be given to the economist in this like a site. The Nobel Prize is basically for some mainstream economics and some alternative field of economics, mostly European schools. So he's a professor in Cambridge. I mean, like a U.S. and is mostly like a U.S. economics is quite a mainstream and based on fundamental market things. And yeah, some scholars in Europe have this kind of argument. He was awarded the prizes, and since then, he wrote some series of books. And this Bad Samaritan is kind of a recent things. Yeah? But, chapter 2 summarizes all these things. I mean, all like the same, but different examples, but the same kinds of things. Yeah?
If you read the book, he keeps on driving the same ideas.
Right.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like he's like a cynic actually, but he has very good examples. So.
Yeah, and those examples are particularly good because his data is from like a 1700 or 1800, I mean, something like that. It's quite old data. So sometimes I really wonder how he got those kind of like 200 years old data.
Time machine.
Things. Yeah. Anyways, it was reading that book as well. Yeah. Okay, any questions? This is kind of the same thing repeated actually, yeah? But different words. But yeah, please.
Do you guys agree that the letter kicking is deliberate?
Officially, no. Unofficially, yes. Yeah, you can observe, right? There's no American here, but there's a lot of flack against America, like that. They only protect themselves, and when it comes to wars, they start the wars, and then because of oil, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. But if you look at them, there are some countries that really want to foster free trade because they want to help these developing countries. But there are some countries which really try to protect themselves, and it's human nature, right, to be selfish. So it really depends maybe on the leaders of the countries. Depends on what their policies are, what the policies they're pushing for. But in reality, this happens.
Maybe to add something to that, the ladder can be taken away. Once a time, my country was able to do away with these key international institutions, like IMF and then the World Bank. Now, when you read a book, there are loans given.
Yeah.
There are tight conditions.
Yeah, a lot of concessions, right?
So far as you go before them to beg, then indirectly, they apply those conditions. That you should apply this before I give you the loan. Or after I give you the loan, put it at this place. They add targets, tax to the loans. So once you go before them, then this latter case will be applied against you. But if you forgo them, then you can go your own way and apply your own policies. One government did that in Ghana. Unfortunately, that government left. The current one came and it was impossible for them to continue, so they went back to IMF. Of course, IMF comes down to review your economy, tells you that cut government employees, cut this, add this, cut subsidy. Then of course, this latter thing has come back. So in reality, if you are a strong country developing, you can go there. But if you are in trouble, of course, you should have to go.
Yeah, and I can also just briefly add, in the case of Afghanistan, that since fall of the Taliban regime, the international community and through the World Bank and IMF, they also agreed to financial support. But in most cases, in almost 90%, the aid was, as Gilbert mentioned, it was optional for the government. So they directly define where to be spent, where to be invested, and in the sectors or in the field that the outcome would have been for long term, to make the people able that they should sustain that in the future. It was not invested or spent on those fields. It was optional for the government. They had their own conditions that they would provide you financial support, but for certain projects and cases.
We have a saying, right? There is no such thing as a free lunch. So if someone gives you lunch, he will ask you something back in the future. So that's what happens. So there's some just want your friendship maybe, but sometimes something's there's payback soon, right?
That's right.
Even free lunch, we have to pay our time.
Time.
Opportunity cost.
So in fact, if you read chapter, I don't know, 7 or 8, there's some part that he explains about this the IMF things. The IMF is more macro side. So this course is national trade. So in fact, if you read the textbook, I covered only half, from chapter 1 to 11. But from chapter 12 to 22 is about international macro, about like what is exchange rate and what is government monetary policy, fiscal policy, how does it affect exchange rate. And then at the end of the book, we study this IMF and the kind of a financial crisis. So we didn't discuss that thing in this class. I didn't ask you to read those parts, but yeah, that part is also very interesting to read. All right. Okay, so thank you very much for your work. Pick up one of them.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hatem and I are going to do question 5, and we're going to discuss what Chang calls historical amnesia. Now, the previous presentations talked about how the developed countries, they use protectionism and nationalism in order to become rich. And then we just spoke about ladder kicking. And that is about deliberately sabotaging other nations so that they don't get to the level where these rich countries are. There is another side to it though, and it falls under historical amnesia. Everybody knows what amnesia is, right? It's a disease that causes you to forget, basically. What Chang says is that maybe it's not necessarily deliberately trying to keep other nations down. Maybe people just forget how they actually got to the position that they are. So he said that a country's history is rewritten to fit their present image. So all the subsidies and taxations, all the protectionism was actually written out of the history. So nobody remembers that side. They remember free trade. So the current people in these rich countries, they don't know about protectionism. All they know is that their country practices free trade right now, and it works for them. So they believe that it can work for everybody else. So we know we have the conspiracy theories about how IMF and WTO is run by the rich countries, and it is for their best interests. But the title of the book is Bad Samaritans. And basically what he's saying is that they're not trying to do bad, they try to do what they think is best for other countries. It's just that they have negative effects.
Well, yeah, the author gives the example of Korea learning the international trade and economics from pirated books, but now they are educating that there shouldn't be piracy. So yeah, what Nicole said, like there's people forget things, so maybe they have forgotten that once they use the protectionist and nationalist policies to protect their industries, and that's how they developed, and now they are in a stage that they might have forgotten all those what they did, and telling the others you should not do this.
You mentioned how Ghana, how the IMF policies negatively affected Ghana. In my region, it was the same thing. I think it was basically the same all over the world because they tried this one size fits all, and it doesn't work for everybody. So it had negative consequences, and instead of advancing, we kind of stepped back. And now, my country actually has to go back to the IMF to sign a new deal. It's terrible, and we're afraid that the policies that we have to implement now won't benefit us overall. But then, we have to ask if the IMF and WTO are deliberately trying to keep developing countries from becoming developed. And we have the bad side to the history, but there's also the positive side. And he mentions that after the Second World War, the US basically abandoned its policies to deliberately weaken the German economy. So they started investing more in Germany and allowing those countries that were a part of the USSR to become more developed. So we can't just focus on the bad part. We can also point to other good things and good consequences from the actions of these developed countries. That's it. Thank you.
So, I mean, this IMF thing is very controversial. I mean, South Korea also received the IMF package in 1997, and it has many conditions attached, right? As you know, like increasing the interest rate to cool down this economy. So that has to create a lot of some layout of this, the economy's unemployment rate is increasing a lot. Sometimes some people criticize IMF that stands for like I am fired, not I am monetary fund. Yeah. But I mean, those kind of policies are all made by like those so-called developed countries. And according to this author, like they are not hiding their past, but it's something that they actually believe that from the beginning their policy was based on this free market policies. Yeah. So this is something like amnesia. It's not something that they remember, but they don't want to say it. But they just completely don't understand what they did in the past. And yeah, so like if we look at the textbook, then if we impose tariff, that creates a netted loss. So we can clearly see these kind of two triangles, right? But yeah, that doesn't really make sense. If all those kind of things is working, if tariff is very good, then we have to model these kind of tariff things all differently. But yeah, it's kind of a fundamental kind of a gap between those concepts. All right, thank you very much. Yeah. Write your name. Hatam, write your name. And pick up one of and share with her. Okay, let's move on to question 6.
Good evening, Professor and colleagues. For question 6, Ami will quickly go through the answer for comparison, and after that I will quickly cover what is so-called Nankan Treaty and Opium War and the real history of the globalization. Please.
Okay, thank you, Sampat. We try to answer questions number 6. How are they different from each other between the official history and the real history? We think there are 2 issues about the difference. The first one is the official history says that the free trade, the liberal world order began in British. It began was based on the very industrial policies at home, like capital and labor, and then low barrier to the international flow goods, and then macroeconomic stability, something like that. But Cheng explained that there are incomplete informations. There was incomplete information in the history. So the real story at the same time, there was wars. For example, British has war between British and China. When China was defeated by British in the war, then the China forced to sign the Treaty of Nanking. The Treaty of Nanking, which made China lease Hong Kong to British, and then give up its right to set its own tariff. So, according to the real history, there are some information, some wars. There are wars, and according to the Tuchang, that British hegemony was made possible in large part by military rather than market force. At the same time, also there are colonialism all over the world. When there was poor country under pressure from the big country. So poor country have pushed by their colonial to set tariff from the colonial countries. So according to this information, according to the history, the issue of first one is there are also not completely market force. Market force, but there are in large part happened by military force. And then the second one is the official described the British abandonment of free trade in 1932 as a succumbing to temptation of protectionism. So the next period, most countries has policy to protect their country, their own country. So because of the British under pressure from its competitor. So according to official history, British abandoned just succumbing to temptation. But the real set was because of their loss by this competitor. So the real set that precisely was the successful of protectionism by its competitors, like especially by US. So in that time, US has policy to protect their own country. So British lost, and then because of that they abandoned their policy protectionism. The policy free trade policy. Sorry. Okay. Maybe my friend Sampat will explain more.
Thank you, Amik. Actually, I would like to explain you what is the Nanking Treaty and the so-called Opium War. During 1840s, this is British and China. British imported tea from China. Growing demand for tea in Britain made serious budget deficit against China. Then British, India was their colony at that period, 1840s. Started to export opium from India to China to balance their payments. Since opium is a narcotic, China government stopped this thing by using their power, and then British government became to a war against China. At that war, China seriously defeated, and ultimately they had to lease Hong Kong to British by a Nanking Treaty, so-called Nanking Treaty. So this is how author used example to show British government used power, not market forces, military power to for the globalization. Globalization, what we call the free mobility of labor, capital, goods, and everything. The chapter author in the written history of the official history of globalization, the British government was started the globalization in the 1980s actually. But how they did it is was it not used market power. Actually, a lot of countries under their rule as colonies. They used unequal treaties. By force, they used free mobilization of these goods, labor, and everything in this among these countries. This is the globalization first history, real history of globalization. The thing is, author clearly explained that by that globalization, they evidence only this type of growth of input. Income of the per capita income in USA. They evidenced in USA 1.6 something per capita income growth, and in UK it is 1.4 something. In African countries it is 0.6 something, and in Asia it is 0.4. This is not equal actually. By that globalization, only the UK and USA, that type of powerful nations got the advantage, not the Asia and Africa, especially these were colonies. This is the official historian, the real historian, the official history, the difference of globalization.
So official history, this is what we learned in class. It's the first golden age of globalization, and we have an interwar period between World War I and World War II, and just before the World War II ended, we have like a Bretton Woods agreement, And we have now in the second stage of, second golden age of international trade, something like that. So that's so-called the official history. But behind those official history, like in the first golden age, like in the real history, like they are talking about like how those kind of a golden age started. I mean, the official history doesn't really say much about that, but just say about like this globalization is based on market things, yeah, kind of a free movement of goods and services. But in real history, so-called real history, is based on kind of like imperialism or kind of some colony or power, that kind of things, which is quite different from what we believe now. Okay? So, it's like that. Any questions? Yeah, this is quite nice. Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you so much. Okay, number 7 is about. Oh yeah. Who is your friend?
He's lived here, so he returned to his room.
Oh, he returned his room. Okay.
From chapter 1, page 10 to 14.
So let's limit maybe 3 minutes per question. Time constraints.
I would like to summarize the example that supports the author's argument, which is the bad old days in developing countries weren't so bad at all. This is because in 1960s and 1970s, developing countries was having per capita income was growing by 3% annually. And first, in Latin America, per capita was growing 3.1%, which is above average of developing countries. But after the neoliberalization, growth decreased to 1/3 of the past. And next, in case of African countries, they had 1 to 2% of growth. However, after they decreased the living standards because of IMF and World Bank's intervention was more than any other regions. What they did was they first tried to create the wealth of the country where they increased some of the income inequalities and to bring up the growth of the economics. But the result was they increased the income equality, but the growth didn't go up. The growth slowed down.
So bad is not really bad. I mean,
no.
Like it is bad from those kind of mainstream people's perspectives, but in fact, not really bad. Right? So when they use so-called bad policies, they perform the better than using those liberalized policies.
Yeah. And finally, in case of Chile, it is shown as a succeeded country. They took the theory of Chicago boys and they developed and they did well, but they also had some financial crisis in 1982 and they lost their manufacturing industry and now they are depending mainly on natural resources to export. So, in conclusion, official history was to hide the failure of neoliberal policy was the conclusion from the chapter 1, page 10 to 14.
So in fact, according to the author, we cannot find any examples in which a country is successful from these true liberalized policies. There's no such countries. Even Chile is assumed to be very liberal country, but even that country, I mean, when they were in the stage of development, I mean, it's not that liberal. So it's all the same things.
The example he said about Netherlands.
Netherlands
is exceptional case in
but if you read that Keeping Away the Leather, the different book, he said that even Netherlands is supposed to be the most liberal country in Europe from the past. Still, I don't remember very well, but they used something in some stages. But relatively speaking, it's more liberal than other countries. That's true. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, number 8. So there are some difference between IMF and WTO and also UN, right? So, now, Tannen here. Maybe you can write your name.
Here?
Sorry, man. Sorry. We're talking about the book. We're talking about the book.
His name also?
Okay, I'll yeah, I know.
Not opinion. Not opinion.
Okay, so I just wrote for you.
Okay. Yeah. We are trying to answer this question, question 8. Even though WTO is more democratic than the WB and IMF, in the sense of allowing one country, one vote, but the other says that WTO has been criticized on a number of grounds.
So WTO is one country, one vote?
One country, one vote.
Then what about the World Bank and IMF?
They are based on the share each country to the
share each country, yeah?
So
that's
this
the kind of fundamental difference.
So,
and who has the largest share?
IMF?
Yeah.
I think the US and British.
And how much is the share?
60%.
No, not that much.
Yeah,
60.
Less than 50%.
I think it's at 20-30% for US, and then Japan is also second largest, almost same as the US. So, so World Bank and IMF, US is the largest share. So, the president of the World Bank has been always American so far, yeah, including the current one. The current World Bank president he's Korean, but the citizenship is nationality is American. And IMF is from
France.
Europe.
Yeah, France.
Not only France, but somewhere in European countries.
Yes.
That's kind of yeah. But the interesting thing is that Japan pays a lot of money to both World Bank and IMF. Maybe that's why you are here, right? IMF, Japan, IMF.
And what about ADB, for example?
ADB is like Japan's largest share. That's why the president is always a Japanese. But in international field, I mean, even though Japan pays a lot of money, but there's no president of IMF from Japan, or World Bank president from Japan. So that might be some kind of political things going on. But that's different from this question, but anyway, keep going on.
So that's different between WTO, IMF, and WB. So in WB and IMF, they call it $1, one vote. So how many dollars you put in the fund, then you get the larger share and vote. So even though WTO has one country, one vote, but it has been criticized because these three bodies are so-called the unholy trinity. They said they are the same but different uniform. They are the same but only different uniform. So WTO is just no more than IMF and WB. And some example will be provided by Khan to answer this question, please.
Yeah, so as a whole book, so the author described what's different between the WTO and the rest of this organization. So, and how Harry said that almost same, and give some exactly details and examples with this issue. Like, for example, annually, you know that the WTO is located in Geneva? Yeah, so Geneva, there's so-called green room. And in that green room, there's only some members who can attend. And actually, in that green room, actually all members can decide what kind of trade will be done during this year. So only that members of that green room, so-called green room, can be decided. And the members, of course, there's only rich countries from developed countries. And there was an accident, actually, the author described. There was some member of WTO who want to attend to this green room, but they physically rejected from attending to this. So, and the author said, where is there's no a fairness, even it's like an international organization. There's no fairness. Only the rich countries can be the rule of all kind of organization, even WTO or IMF or WB.
Yeah, if I want to add you, even though one country, one vote, but the votes are never taken in the meeting. Only some countries, rich countries, decided the decision, the negotiation. And also there is example here. His former student attended the meeting in the Geneva, but there were only 3 people attended several meetings, so it wasn't optimal for them to negotiate to get a favor from the meeting. So there are some reasons why WTO has been criticized.
Yeah. So that's something that WTO cannot deal with. So what the example that you mentioned is that like in developing countries, they don't have many people to send WTO to negotiate. Yes. So in his example, only 3 people goes to Switzerland as a representative of the country, and each person go to there are so many sessions, but 3 people has to participate all the sessions. Sometimes they have to skip some part. But in developed countries, in one session there are so many experts, lawyers or some. So if they negotiate, it cannot compete. Yeah, so one person attend many sessions, and many person attend one session. That's totally different.
How about language?
Language is going to be the English, but of course, it's different. Many people and just one person. Yeah, and even though language, they can speak all good languages. Individually, there might be some very capable people, but group wise, it's going to be very different.
Yes, this kind of the another unfairness of even the sharing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So WTO is formed in 1995.
1995. Yeah.
Far away from IMF and
IMF World Bank, 1944, the Bretton Woods. So WTO was supposed to be established with them, but later. So relatively speaking, WTO is more modern. It's better than IMF and the World Bank in terms of this kind of rules.
So IMF and World Bank are the decoy of the.
I don't know, yeah, but so WTO try to be more democratic compared to other things, but there's some kind of fundamental things that they cannot really deal with. Yeah. All right, yeah, thank you. Okay, so we are somewhere in about 5 pictures. So this is similar to what is explained before. So let's do it quickly. Right. You can start. That's right. Hand right. What does the TINA stand for?
Okay, we're gonna do question 9, and it says, what is TINA and what does it mean? Basically, TINA means there is no alternative.
No alternative.
This term came into being from the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and basically, the rationale behind the term is that they are suggesting that to ensure development, especially for developing countries, globalization and free trade is inevitable, is very, very important, and it's the driving force behind development. And
so that's something like a golden stair jacket, right? In Thomas Friedman, one size fits all things.
Yeah.
There should be only one way, no alternative.
And basically, the author had some criticism of this Tina theory. The first one is that basically the issue or idea of globalization of free trade is like imposed on developing countries. It's not like a choice given to them, but rather by force or something like that. And basically they use they distort history and create the impression that globalization or free trade is the most important contributor to economic growth, and that they went through similar process to reach at the height that they are currently. And for the part of the bad, who are the bad Samaritans, he suggested obviously the rich and developed countries are the bad Samaritans who try to push these policies for developing countries to adopt. And from that point, the author suggested that it is wise for developing countries to gradually enter the global market and to have supporting policies to help the transition and to compete fairly in the global market, rather than just entering the global market with little experience and weak economy. Yeah. So my colleague is gonna give us some.
So to add some more on what Ibrahim has said, and to maybe try to summarize and to conclude on what the small part of Tina is trying to say is that first, who are the bad Samaritans? The bad Samaritans are like to present globalization as an inevitable result of relentless developments in technology, and how to be a successful economy. Through selective and strategic integration with the world economy, large amount of policy autonomy. So, as what our professor have said, should be unique. The policy should be unique. Every economy, every country has a unique policy to be made, to be chosen, and not to be imposed. And then the globalization, nothing inevitable, driven more by politics rather than technology. So political will should be, and human will should be present, and depends on national policies, international agreements. So everything depends on the kind of economy, the kind of country the policy should be undertaken. And to conclude, Tina means that there is no alternative, but the book suggests that there are a lot of alternatives. That's all.
But the point is whether it's really whether we can actually use those alternative things or not. Even though we might suggest that this is alternative, but whether it's going to be really realistically used or not, that can be
or effective to the
in the
economy.
world market, right. So if we try to impose that tariff, then other countries can file a suit to WTO, so you have to sometimes abolish these things. So that may be very easy. Why is the name Samaritans? Where is it from?
Good Samaritans.
Yeah. So it's from those Bible things. Yeah. Muslim countries also have that same example. So they share some part of the Bible, right? Quran, but they also some part of them are similar. I have heard. Yeah, it's the same story.
But I don't remember the Samaritan story.
Samaritan is some kind of foreigners. So assumed to be kind of not a good people, from those kind of mainstream people. But somebody was walking, and it was kind of like a bank, I guess it's a robbery. And then this Samaritan tried to help that person, tried to save his life. So we have a good Samaritan. There's somebody who tries to help someone. It's basically from Bible, but they changed the name to bad Samaritan. Somebody who tend to help. They pretend to help someone, but in fact not really helping.
Has a different agenda.
Right,
Not really trying to help, but trying to pull down those developing countries.
Opiates have been good, but
Okay, thank you. Okay, number 10. So we have a few more. 6-year-old son. Yeah, this is quite an interesting example.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to share my reading to all of you briefly. This is the author's son. He is 6 years old. Author is comparing with his son is a man and industry in developing country. They will not be survived if they are exposed to international competition too early. First, and he has a son. His son is 6 years old, and then he is not living with his parents. That's why his parents have to support every expense. And in this 18th century, a million of children, they have already job. This is Daniel Defoe thought that. And then the authors think that he should make his son quit school and want to get a job. And on the other hand, he's thinking that if he drive his son go into the labor, his son will not be the skillful labor, and he will never become a professional like a brain surgeon or physics, nuclear physicist. And also there is an argument that developing country producer need to be exposed to as much competition as possible right now, so that they have the incentive to raise their productivity in order to survive. But he want to argue this assumption, and given the example of his son. If his son got a job in this time, and his son would not be able to rise the challenge of brain surgeon, and if he quits the job at the age of 6, and likewise the baby version of industry in the developing country, if they are exposed to international competition too early, they will not be survived. That's why the author he needs only protection while his son is accumulating their capabilities. This is brief of this chapter, and Ben will provide some answer for it.
No, I think I will conclude. This book talk about the author tried to give an alternative argument versus the free trade economists. What free trade economists believe? They believe that the infant industry in developing countries should be exposed as soon as possible, so they have incentive to raise their productivity in order to survive. So in free trade economists believe that protection only give complacency and sloth. But the author wants to argue this by using a parable of his 6-year-old son. So there is incentive, but not about only incentive. There's talk about capability. If his 6-year-old son quit from school and have a job in that age, he will not be able to be a surgeon or something. So Likewise, infant industries in developing countries also will not survive if they are exposed to international competition too early. They need time to improve their capability by mastering advanced technology, and building effective organization. And also, making his 6-year-old son work at his age is wrong, but subsidizing him at the age of 40 is also wrong. So in this case, make your infant industry in developing countries to facing free trade competition is wrong. But also subsidize too much and too long is also wrong. So he used the parable of his 6-year-old son to arguing what free trade economists believe about the infant industry should do in the developing countries.
In fact, I mean, so this example is very easy to understand. Even though, I mean, there's lots of debate on whether we have to protect the infant industry or not. But for that example, there's no objections that we have to protect those infants, the babies. And but in fact, sometimes his argument is sometimes too extreme. Like even in WTO systems, like sometimes there are some rules to protect those infant industries. And if you remember those safeguard rules of WTO, after they write all these safeguard kind of schedule, at the end they write the name of the countries in which those rules are exempted. So WTO is not that harsh in that sense. Sometimes a tariff or protection is needed. Is what we agree. But basically, this is talking about, and probably, I mean, not much to discuss about it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Number 11. 11. So keep going on, maybe same thing. And so I think we can do a couple of more, then can stop. And yeah.
So I will just brief the first part of the question, so then the last will.
Okay. Go quickly.
Yes. So I will start with the problems of free trade. So the first one is the increased pressure on the government budget, then the unemployment and low level of business activities as overall effects the reduce of income tax revenue also is one problem. According to the author, most developing countries are liberalized not because of their actual needs, but they were pushed by the IMF and the World Bank, especially during the period of during the debt crisis of world debt crisis of 1982, and then the WTO also involved with that. So when it comes to the Mexico example, actually they would perform well before 1990s. During the bad old days, I think their annual growth rate was around 3.1%. But after 1990s, the situation changed quickly. So they lost their jobs and reduced wages, especially the agriculture sector hit by subsidized US products. Then when it comes to 2001 and 2005, their growth rate reduced from 3.1% to 0.3. So the next part will be.
So like if you remember the chapter 6 in Mexico, like if you remember the maquiladora industry, that kind of thing that I showed the graph in the slides. Like after we have NAFTA. NAFTA is the free trade agreement among U.S., Mexico, and Canada, right? Mexico's case, I mean, there's an initial adjustment. There's an initial kind of job loss, but after that, there's going to be like some huge growth. But according to him, Mexico's growth is not just based on the NAFTA, but there's happening even before there's NAFTA. So the free trade is not the result of their high growth, but that was happening even just before this liberalization phase. Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing I want to add. The thing is, he has some opinion after, based on the statistics. like the liberalization especially speed up from 1980 onwards with a high speed. And if we look the data from 1950s to 80, and the results will be just opposing. Most of the developing countries have like 3.1% of annual growth from 1950 to 80 before the liberalization. And if we see the statistics after 80 onwards, or even in this case Mexico, why people give the example is NAFTA. NAFTA is a free trade agreement between three countries. US is the bordering country and a large scale of the market. Mexico is supposed to get benefited from entering into the NAFTA in 1995. But what he compared, please do not forget the previous history. In the history, Mexico has already achieved 3.1 annual growth rate for the last 20 years. So if you compare these statistics and these statistics, then we get some confusion. That's, I think his finding is right, his claim.
Okay.
So it's not always true that because of this free trade, Mexico is really benefiting. So we have to go back to history. That's, I think, is important.
Okay, so this number 12 is something that is related with our past. And they say like a hexaolene Samuelson, right? I mean, so sometimes they say hexaolene model, sometimes hexaolene Samuelson, sometimes hexaolene Vanek model. So basically, this is what we learned in class. And that model is criticized. One assumption. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. We are trying to answer the question number 12. The question is, what is the assumptions of hexaolene model? The author critically criticized.
Thank you. I would like to explain the theory in the class that we have Ricardian model, or we call it, and then we have the hexaolene model. The hexaolene model we divided it into two. The first one is the space-like factors. Yeah, and the second one we assume that the labor and the capital can switch. So in this case, the author argued that the capital and the labor can switch is wrong.
Switch means
switch
across their own sectors.
Yeah, across their own sector.
Not like a capital, labor, they switch. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, labor will switch among themselves, and capital will switch across their own sector.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. The thing is like that. We have to the author provide the critical example of the steel mill industry and the computer industry. In the steel mill industry here, the government want to decrease the tariff, and then the import will be increased, right? So if the import increase, so the steel mill will shut down their own industry. So when the steel mill shut down their own industry, the resources in the industry will be terminated. We have like the worker, the building, or we say blessed finance. Okay, so the thing is like that. But in this case, they say the HOS say that if it switch, it means like it will maintain the same productivity and also keep the same or over the higher return of that industry to the computer industry. This is the case of HO the model.
But in reality, the resources are usually fixed in their physical qualities. As a book example, so the workers of technical skilled workers of the steel company, they have the specialized in this with the working with the blast furnace. So they do not right skills to work in the computer factories, the computer section. And also that resources we cannot switch to the computer industries. So the workers who work at the steel corporation, sometimes they might work employed in the low skilled jobs, and also sometimes maybe the unemployed. But general skilled workers and the general machines, we can switch to the computer factories. And the next question is what does it mean, the compensation principle?
Firstly, I would like to brief up that we discussed in the first. We call it poor theory, poor result here. It means like, it means like it does not think like the when you switch, the high skilled worker will remain the high skill in the steel industry, but they cannot work in the computer industry. This is the first case. And also the thing is like, but still have like the machine or the lower skilled worker, they can work like the admin staff, and then they can switch to the computer industry. Okay, let's move to the second part. We call it compensation principle. Compensation principle is simply mean like once the international trade can guarantee the overall gain, and then it is worth to make the international trade. Okay. Yeah, the principle is like this. Once the international trade can guarantee the overall gain, so it is worth to make the international trade. But this is the simple phrase. I'm going to give you some worth, W-O-R-T-H. You can go to the page. Actually, this is very simple. And the thing is like that. In the question, professor didn't ask how can this principle is argued, but I'm going to give you maybe two cases that this principle is argued by the author in the book. The first one is like this. The globalization or the international trade cannot guarantee the overall gain. Because of what? We have two kinds of the world, right? The developing world and the developed world. So in the developing world, we have like retraining. The retraining, or it seems like it cannot guarantee that all the winner can cover all the loser. It cannot guarantee like this one. And the second one is like for the developed country. For the developed country, they provide more. We call it unemployment benefit. This is the first one, and they also provide training scheme to the unskilled worker, and then the unskilled worker can switch among the sector. The last case is for I say again about the some country is we call it, they have lower welfare state. So for the lower welfare state here, they cannot pay like the compensation to the unskilled worker or to the unemployment. This is the case that I find out, but actually we have many more. You can keep further reading on this part. Thank you.
Okay. That's quite it's important because it's directly related with our lecture, and I mean we have she mentioned like a steel mill industry and computer industry. Suppose this country has a competitive advantage in computer industry. It means this country will specialize in producing computer and export more computer and import steel mill. But the people in the steel mill industry will become worse, and people in computer industry will become better. So their gain is more than this industry's loss. That's why international trade is good. We have an overall gain. This is what we learned in the Shaolin model. And how, like those result is based on the assumption that labors are mobile across sectors, both in the short run and the long run. And in the long run, I mean, both capital is moving, but in the short run, capital is not moving, but at least the labor is moving. But in reality, it's not really easy to assume that labor is moving from one industry to another industry very easily. Yeah? So we need some training program or some kind of things. Sometimes technologies, we need some higher technology. So this assumption itself is not realistic, and the result based on that assumption is wrong. That's what he criticized. And even though we say that the assumption is true, so suppose we believe that the Shaolin model, and we don't really know whether there are overall gain or not. It's not proven. That the overall gain is made from that assumption. So if we don't really believe the assumption, then we don't really know. We cannot guarantee that we have an overall gain or not. Even though we believe that there's overall gains, that means countries, the winning sector can give some money or can compensate the losing sector. So if I gain like 100, and if these two people lose like 50, then I take some of my 10 of gain, then give it to them through the tax or something. But in real world, especially in developing countries, that kind of a redistribution scheme, compensation principle is not really working. Sometimes not exist. Yeah. Suppose you are working in, unfortunately, you are working in like a comparative disadvantaged sector. Suppose you are fired after having free trade. Then if you are unemployed, then from tomorrow, then can you receive money from the government? No. It's unemployment benefits. So that kind of thing exists in developed countries. Maybe I think in Japan, if you are unemployed, then if you apply for the unemployment benefit, then not forever, but at least for a few months or a few years, you can receive money. Like less than your salary, but still quite good amount of money that you can survive. So sometimes in Northern European countries, in Sweden, Norway, which is very like highly some welfare state, those compensation of unemployment benefit is higher than sometimes your wage. So they have less incentive to find a job. So that kind of another problem arises. But sometimes, I mean, in many times, that kind of thing has to be protected by government. But in developed countries, if those principles does not exist, then free trade is very bad for those losing people. So
they even tell you, the government, not to spend, cut your spending. So how much more can you even give?
Yeah, that's right.
Benefits to?
So I mean, unless government have a lot of resources to protect those kind of losing people, the international trade is going to be very, very miserable to those kind of losing people. That's quite interesting. So our theory, we admit that it's very based on very simple assumptions. But one thing we have to know is that without having those assumptions, we cannot make any results. There's kind of some good and bad things about making theories. So, thank you. More. So let's very quickly finish all those things.
Okay. So I will explain the adults are independent because they are successful, not other way around. Arthur is saying that developed countries like US and Britain, they always say the developing countries to have a free trade. And he said it's same as telling the parents of 6 years old to send him to get a job. arguing that successful people don't live with their parents. So it's giving the same message like previous questions, that countries, developing countries should protect their producers before let them compete in the international market. So they should gradually support their producer financially and emotionally, and that developed countries became independent because they are successful, so not other way around. So he will explain.
Yeah, I want to say also, I want to add to Guillermo. In conclusion, I would say producers in developing countries need to period of isolation from international competition. It means that government have to support producer at first through the instrument tools like protection, tariff, and subsidies, and give the local producer to grow up at first and then to go to the competition. It means that local producer have to be ready for international trade at first and then to be a success in the competition market. It means at first, before to trade liberalization, country have to develop at first, be more economic stronger, and then can open to the.
So it's more like they should be dependent. I mean, they should be protected first, and then has to go out to the world market.
Yeah.
So each one has to come first, and first the protection, and then like a gradual liberalization, but not the other way around. But the current mainstream people says that they should be liberalized first, and then the country will develop. But it's the other way around.
Yes,
right?
opposite side. Yeah. Maybe the trade liberalization is good in the short period of time because a lot of goods, huge flow of goods will come to the country and satisfy current consumption at first. But in the long-term period, it can be a little bit problematic for producers.
Okay. Okay, so we have one final, Indian. Yeah. After this one, let's have some break and have a review session.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So we are going to answer the question number 14. So before we answer the question, I think we should need to explain a little bit the background of this, the question. So, as the previous group explained that trade liberalization, so this trade liberalization first expressed in 1986 by the U.S. President Ronald Reagan in the GATT meeting. And then he said that new and more liberal agreements with our trading partners, agreement under which they would fully open their markets and treat American products as they treat their own. So, and the whole story began from this 1986. And then the people started to realize this movement, and then they ended up in Moroccan city, Marrakech, in 1994 about the trade liberalization things. And they said in the WTO, they said the level of playing field, so which is every country treat at the same level. So it doesn't matter whether it's developed or developing country. So the GATT regime was a little bit different because the countries can choose whatever they want, like, and then they pick agreement and they sign up, and many developing countries could stay out of agreements and they didn't want to. So, for example, like agreement restricting to use the subsidies and something like that. And to give this example, the thing is like for example, like in United States, the overall tax rate was 1.6%, and that rate rises steeply for a large number for developing countries. Average import taxes from the around for the 4% for India and Peru, and 7% for Nicaragua, and 14 to 15% to Bangladesh and Cambodia and Nepal. So they like treat the developing countries' products in a different way. So the Zaya will explain a little bit. She will answer the question.
Yeah, I'll explain his point in another aspects in tariffs aspects. After introducing the WTO agreement, all countries had to follow the agreement, and it affected although they claim that this is all equally to all members, like saying like level playing field, actually it varies depending on your level of current situation. For example, before the agreement, here took an example that India had a tariff of 71%, and US had like a very low 7% of tariff.
71.
Yeah.
71 and 7.
Yeah. 71 and 7. But after the trade, they agreed to cut their tariff almost to the half.
Okay.
And then after the agreement, India's tariff cut down to 32%, and US tariff to 3%. Although it seems like proportionally, both numbers like decreased 50%. It's in absolute numbers. It's gonna give totally different numbers. For example, the good costs $100, and before the trade it was $71 to India's consumers. That's certain good.
So $100 plus $71 tax.
For U.S. citizens, that good was $107. But after the tariff agreement, it drops down to $132, and for U.S. consumers, it's gonna drop down to only this amount. If you compare the absolute numbers, like India's consumers' behavior will change dramatically because that certain good coming from the other countries gonna decrease much. And in another hand, U.S. consumers' behavior won't change much because it's like there's slight change. So it's gonna affect India's economy very much because
but in India, that might be a good news for consumers. They can buy lower price.
Yeah, but at the end, like in that case, the developed countries they will benefit from this trade because they export the product will sell more in those countries, right?
So I think what the author was trying to say is that, like in the U.S., after this they have agreements, the price doesn't change much. Yeah, so only $4 difference. But in India, like almost $40 difference, right? So based on our model, if we reduce the tariff, if we have a free trade before and after, then after free trade, like consumer surplus will increase a lot. So that obviously is a good news for consumers.
Yeah.
Yes, they can buy at a lower price. But for producers, their surplus will decline dramatically. So it's very bad news for producers. Overall, total surplus will increase, right? It's an increase. We're going to show it very soon. Total surplus will increase, but producers' effect, their loss, is so significant. And in developing countries, no way to help those kind of losing people, as we discussed before. There's no compensation scheme or that kind of things. So that's why, I mean, even though they have the same agreement, that affects developing countries more severely than those developed countries. Yeah. It's kind of the same.
I think the reason is like, why the poor countries, the tariff is very high, right?
Mm.
So maybe they try to protect the local market or something.
Right.
So that's why they
Yeah.
affect more.
Right?
Questions?
Okay, so we finished all these 14 questions. It took more than I expected, but I hope you all enjoyed this conversation. And, so, what do you think about the book? So if you have a time, then try to read other chapters as well. It's all interesting, but very similar, like a perspective. Some kind of in different topics, but similar perspectives. This is very interesting to read. Okay, so let's finish this one, and then let's have a short break, and then maybe only 5 minutes break. So from 8:20, let's go over this problems and questions. I'll hand out. I brought that for you. Okay, thank you very much for your all active participation. Thank you very much.